no other hands raised, I'm going to close public comment on ordinance 2025-562S3. That is a mouthful, everybody. As amended, and see if there are final comments from my colleagues. Vice Chair Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. And this is for the whole, I'm surprised we had more comments, but I appreciate my colleagues today. There's a lot of work involved with this budget. I mean, what you saw today was a lot of work over the weeks and months of coming up to get this budget together. There was a lot of good things in this budget, but there's also a lot of things that I didn't agree with in this. I mean, we had a lot of fee increases and things like that are really tough decisions that are going to affect our taxpayers. And you know, they're a little here, a little there, but stacked up, it's going to affect our taxpayers. You know, our council and the executive, they have their legislative priorities. And at our district levels, we also have those for ourselves. And one of mine, or my number one, was public safety. You know, throughout this whole budget, we're hearing lots of emails and comments on the sheriff's office. You know, one of the oldest and simplest justification of government to even have it from all over the world, from any type of history, is protection. And safety, and to protect our citizens. And whether it be if our citizens are protected but don't feel it is a real thing, or if they are literally not being protected is a real thing. So we look at both of those, and some of the emails and some of the information that's going on, I think some of the people feel they're not protected, or they aren't being protected in some aspects. Some of the things you didn't see in this budget here today and didn't talk about is some of the amendments from our other council meetings, I think Committee of the Whole and our council meetings, that would address some of those issues right away when it comes to our sheriff's office, and to stop the hemorrhaging. We know we can't do nothing about the pay. That's between the guild and the executive, and we encourage that to move forward. But we had amendments that could maybe help bolster the some of the pay enhancements to the retentions and the bonuses. But those were voted down, and I was disappointed in that. You know, it was said that this could be addressed through House Bill 2015, which a lot of people don't know what that is, and that's possibly another avenue of taxing the people again to get more money for the sheriff's office, or public safety. It's going to be divided up, but I won't talk about that here. But another tax on the people, there's another tax that came out, was the behavioral health tax that came up a few years ago. And it took a long time to implement things. We don't have a crisis center right now. It's been years since we've had this tax. And we still see people who are mentally ill wandering about. So to rely on House Bill 2015 to immediately boost our sheriff's office, I think is risky business. We had an opportunity to address the issues with some of the amendments, and that didn't happen. You know, my hope now is for the Sheriff's Guild and the executive to get together sooner than later and come up with something fair for everybody else, and I absolutely encourage that. Historically, Pierce County has taken a pride in itself not being King County, not being Seattle. And I heard over and over again the justification of raising fees and other things is to be in line with our comparable counties. And Pierce County has always kind of like was a different place to live, a different place to raise your family. People left King County, people left Seattle to buy their house and raise their family in Pierce County because it was a little bit cheaper. Lord knows it has changed. It's not like that anymore. And the American dream seems to be out of touch for a lot of our folks. with these fees, it's going to affect our seniors. It's going to affect our young families trying to live here, affect our military members who try to live here. So I do appreciate the budget process, though, which I felt was more open and collaborative compared to previous cycles. I've only been through one other one, but and I really appreciate that. I want to thank the chair and the staff who worked really hard in getting this budget forward, and I want to acknowledge the taxpayers who've taken the time to talk to us, to email us, to let us know what's going on, boots on the ground. We can't be everywhere. We don't know what's happening down the street with you, but we do try to listen. We do try to read. There's a lot of information that comes down, but with that, I'll let my comrades speak, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the comments. Are there other comments? Councilmember Morrell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to thank council staff for all the work and effort. This is my 5th budget that I've been through, and it takes a lot of work to get from there to here. And you know, I appreciate the finance staff. You know, I've worked with some great directors and who have helped me greatly to understand the finances of county government. And this will be my last budget, other than a supplemental, maybe. I think of everyone on this council, my colleagues, I got the most history here. This, to me, is a very challenging budget because of a lot of issues. And I'll just kind of go through my high points that I put in here. Washington State is definitely in a challenging position, being pretty much an all-blue state other than Eastern Washington. We're the second highest gas prices in the nation, the 3rd most expensive state to live in. This is the one that got me, the number 1 highest menu prices of any fast food chain in the nation, by more than 13% higher than the national average. The median sales price for a home in Pierce County is $567,000 as of July 31st, 2025. Median listing price is $627,000. Average rent $2,005 for a studio apartment. National rent average is under 19. Parkland being the most affordable in all of Pierce County. And one of the challenges that I have come across is I spent 2 weekends out shopping for homes. Has anyone gone out and shopped for a home lately? The cost of homes are astronomical. We talk a lot about affordability on this council, but yet we are passing the most fee increase of any budget that I've ever been part of. Remote working has been a challenge because if you know, the average home price in King County is $800,000. They can come across the border. I've seen it in Tahale, where they can sell their home and move over here and pay $300,000 less for the same home because they're working from home. They only have to go in twice a week. So we have pushed up the cost on everything, housing related. And like I say, we talked about affordability. Everyone I can imagine on the campaign trail talked about affordability. But then we get on this council and some of us vote different. And we justify adding barriers and cost because we need more regulations? I don't think so. Governor Ferguson said, housing is too expensive, and there is a shortage of housing. So what are we going to do? We're going to expect the builder to incur more costs, to incur more regulations, to incur more environmental regulations. Single adult needs $135,000 annually to live in the Tacoma, Seattle metro area. We are 6th in the nation. We don't need more cost of housing. We need less cost. Permit time is the number one issue. I can care less where you go. The time it takes to get a permit is unfathomable. Markets change by the time we issue permits, and that's unacceptable. But yet we're willing to put forth increases in permit fees without any accountability towards making sure that these permits are done quicker, more efficiently. We go, hey, just give us the money, we'll get the permits out. I don't think so. Like I say, it was really interesting going and shopping for homes. The local builders have to price their homes higher than the national builders because the national builders can go anywhere and build. Our local builders are hurting, they're hemorrhaging in cost, and we do not give them any option other than let's go to Thurston County, let's go to Kitsap County. So when we start putting all these regulations, all these fees, all these costs, they're all pass-through costs, because if you're in business for yourself, you're not going to accept those. You're going to pass them through to the consumer. And all it does is drive up the cost of homes, prices many people out of the market, and keeps them from wealth building. Public safety is number one on everyone's mind in my district. I am in unincorporated Pierce County. It is not homelessness, and it is not affordable housing. It is public safety. Because without public safety, you have neither of the other. And I've been there again on this council the longest, and I've been here for 3 sheriffs. And I have supported each and every one of them moving forward. Since 2006, this county has had challenges filling our vacancies. I do believe that's the last time we actually filled all the vacancies that we currently have. We have, as it's been stated, the lowest deputy to residents ratio of anyone in the nation. It's because we cover a very large geographic area, and it's just becoming less and less financially feasible to do that. We are also one of the lowest paid, and hopefully that becomes corrected. But there again, this council, all my colleagues do, agree that public safety is important. We may look at it differently, we may think about it differently, but I know in District 1, it's a big deal for us. And then the other number one issue that the state suffers with is retail theft. We need to put thieves in jail, shoplifters in jail, and yeah, we can offer them reentry programs and requirements, but if we continue to recycle them through, slap them on the hand, then we cannot get control of what we're looking at. There's been an increase in violence. There's been an increase in domestic violence in this county, and we got to get a handle on it. So this has become somewhat of a polarized and a political issue, and I'm sorry it's come to that. I think we all look at it differently. We all represent different areas of the county. Some represent cities. Some represents very rural areas. And, we have a lot of different needs out there for policing. I understand what, some of the comments that were made. Spent 15 years in the fire service, and I can count probably on two hands the times that we had to watch houses burn down because we did not get deputies out to clear the home. We're not going in. No way. So I understand that aspect of the need. We're not going to send a social worker in to clear someone out of a house that set it on fire and is taking shots at us. Ain't going to happen. But, I think there again, I spend a lot of time researching things, as I know a lot of my colleagues do. And, I try to bring forward ideas that will leave an impact and a legacy. And I'm just, this budget process has frustrated me. There's only been one colleague from the other side that has negotiated with me. Everyone else says, we'll see. I'm not going to commit. I'll just keep cranking out amendments, but at some point, you just kind of go, well, geez, okay, that didn't work. So, it was just like a simple funding request for $49.99 for Goodrich Northwest to install lockers in your community, not mine, your communities, because of a deal that they got from the vendor and got 10 new towers at a discounted price. But no, we can't use those funds for that. No, that's not a good use of funds. Oh, we already funded Good Roots. I know we already funded them, but when someone comes up with a concept that's working, that's handling the food insecurity problem, and we turn a blind eye because we don't want to fund them because that's not fair, I mean, what are we saying to our underserved community? Oh, no, you can't have lockers. You can't have 24 access to food. You can't because you already got your allotment. Things like that just drive me crazy on this council. And, this time has been one of the most difficult times for me moving stuff forward. I've always been able to collaborate. I've always been able to negotiate. And, this time it's just been futile for me to come across with any sense of reality moving forward. I understand that government needs funding to operate, but, let's delay it a couple years? No, we can't do that. We need all of our funding now. That's why permit fees have gone up 20% on top of 20% in 2027. Can't wait another 2 years for that. It just doesn't make sense to me. And there again, I'm only one on this council, but this majority has been very difficult to work with, and I'll be honest about it. So with that, I would like to be helping out more, but as my colleague from the 2nd District talked about, we've been rebuffed. And, I love leaving something better than when I got here. And I've only got one more year on this council, and, I'll be fine. I've earned the respect of my community, and the success that I have coming out of the private sector, taking a pay cut to do this job was something that melded passion with meaning in my life. And this is my last hurrah. And unfortunately, I am not going to be able to support this budget. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you for the comments. We're going to go to Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. And definitely appreciate colleagues that have spoken already. Also want to acknowledge everyone that has both written in, spoken up, done phone calls, emailed throughout this year. I believe we have been working on this for about 10-ish months. So we started with departments back in the first quarter of the year. We had department heads propose their own budgets. Excuse me, let me put this back a little farther. There was a huge leadership transition here in 2025 from our local level, our state level, our federal level, and it changed a lot for this county. It really changed the way we approached work. It changed the policies that were put forward. It changed agendas for our committees, and definitely with new leadership, there are different processes. So I want to first and foremost put forward change is difficult. Well, this process is difficult. It's even more difficult with change. Our department heads spent a lot of time working on their budgets. I definitely want to appreciate everyone who came to council, presented their departmental budget proposals, and really outlined what they were asking for their own jurisdictional boundaries there. I do want to give some kudos to Under Sheriff Fajardo, who came in and really outlined two very strategic points during the budget presentation, one of which was highlighting the incentive cycling that happens across jurisdictions, whether it's cities, counties, states. It's not just a Pierce County issue, it is a national issue. And it's one where we need to align our legislative rules around, which means we're going to have to work together, both at the level that of our geographic level, but also across party lines. The other, and one that I'm very hopeful to see some progress out of, is the special advisor that the sheriff's office now will have to help support a more strategic onboarding, a more comprehensive look at our incentive processes. They also mentioned sometimes it takes a long time for us just to make that initial offer, and we're losing officers because it takes a long time to make that initial offer. So they are now able to hire someone to work on this, and I'm excited for what comes out of that. Us, as elected in our own jurisdictions, we represent 7 very different parts of Pierce County, and this budget does have investments in every single one of our jurisdictions. Some cross jurisdictional lines. Some of us advocated for things that are not in our own district, fully understanding that they would support individuals across those jurisdictional lines. So I'm excited for what that looks like. And I also wanted to highlight that a lot of the work that we still have to do is around the budget being operationalized. And so that is the work of our executive branch, but it is up to us to really ensure that we follow through on all these provisos that were put forward throughout the year, all these asks, and all these reports, that they show up and they are fully thought through as they show up in our committees throughout 2026, and that we make that mid-biannual adjustment reflect a lot of these reports. And with that, right size as much as we possibly can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comments. We're going to move to Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too want to say thank you to staff. It's been a lot of hard work, and for all of those who have shown up to participate. I've had a hard time with this. I look at the role of government, that it was created to protect its citizens and its assets. And what good are your assets if you don't have defenders to protect them? And I don't understand all of the issues that have gone on as to why there is arbitration perhaps coming up, or how that all works, because that's not part of our role as council members. But it would make things a lot better if we kind of knew where we stood and understood that without defenders, we have a lot of issues happening. I was told of a parent that had a meeting at their school. It was in the hinterland, I want to say, and a retired or off-duty policeman was informing the parents that, if something happens, don't expect anyone here for at least 30 minutes. And know where to run for the hills, whatever you have to do with that. And also I was shown a picture of a parent at a bus stop waiting for the bus, and here some 13, 14-year-old kid is acting very strange and pulls out a knife and kind of acts like he's thinking of things. We don't know. But there are dangers out there that need to be addressed. And when I look at this $3.45 billion budget of funds going back and forth, I look at, we are spending other people's money, other people's earnings. And so I have to look at this at a budget and what's in it. Is there anything illegal, anything immoral, anything unaffordable? And I think I can find something in this budget that fills all three of those categories. And we are constantly reminded of how, we don't have money to fund all the services. Well, neither do our constituents, particularly after what we see coming up will probably be in the next session. And I don't know how people will maintain, particularly when we don't know what will be coming in the federal realm, even though we're all paying taxes to the feds. I know that our constituents are struggling. I myself am down in my giving to other organizations. I believe it's around 30%. And I don't know what it will be as time progresses. When I looked, I believe the last forecast was down 66 million I had read from what expectations were. And, I guess just kind of in a nutshell, we should be funding needs, not the wants. And we should be lobbying the legislature to stop giving us unfunded mandates. That is one of the downfalls. That is, something that should be picked up on. So with that, I'll close. I think I've said enough. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Krueger. We're going to go to Councilmember Yambe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to my colleagues for their thoughts on this budget. Coming into this is my first budget ever since this council appointed me and gave me this opportunity, which I'm grateful to each and every one of you. Coming from municipal government, it always was for me a priority to support law enforcement, to give our officers and first responders the tools that they need to do their job. I don't have as, general comments on everything. I do appreciate the staff, and I do appreciate my colleagues and my constituents and community members who have worked with me in helping bring me up to speed with all of the things about county government. I have always started to liken this as A city is like moving a boat. It's fairly easy. If you need to course correct, you can do so. When you come to the county, you recognize that it's a lot more large, and it takes longer for the changes to affect things. And one of those was coming here and recognizing that the mechanisms that I had at the city were very different as far as how government could use our taxes to help pay for law enforcement. We don't have as many tools at the county as you are fortunate enough to have at the city level. And so, and this council in the retreats and all the conversations has consistently said that public safety is one of our highest county priorities, and has been consistent in this budget. Has about 77% is dedicated to law enforcement, to funding our justice systems, to our courts, to our district court, superior court, corrections, and deputies on the boots on the ground out in the community. And lately we've been getting a lot of comments about fully funding our sheriff's office, which, if you look at the budget requests in this budget that the sheriff's office sent over, in the specific decision packages, none have been outright denied by the executive and the council. We have been consistent in whatever that the sheriff's office in general, on reasonable requests, we have been trying to work with them, as in this body scanning equipment that we did tonight. If you look at the pay, for example, on law enforcement for deputies, our Pierce County has a range of about $84,000 to $112,000. I'm just focusing on deputies. If you look at, like jurisdictions, you look at King County. We don't want to compare ourselves to these other counties, but King County's range in 2025 was about $92,000 to about $129,000. Thurston was about $86,000 to $110,000. Snohomish was about $83,000 to $109,000, which puts us at very comparable levels in terms of the pay. We are seeming that we are looking at specifically incentives, which, for example, Tacoma is offering $50,000 bonuses, but at the county right now we have $25,000 in bonuses for a lateral hire, which is an officer from a different department or a different jurisdiction, and then we have $10,000 for entry-level hires. And then the benefits are 80 hours of vacation immediately and 80 hours of sick leave. And in our general fund, our miscellaneous current expense, which this council majority and the chair has been very protective of, has allocated $9,410,000 in miscellaneous current expense dollars for the 26-27 budget for non-interest arbitration bargaining, which is hiring incentives. And so we are waiting, as my colleagues on both sides have said, we are waiting until arbitration is finished, and then we are trying to keep this reserve here so that depending on how the outcome is of those discussions and negotiations, that we will have monies ready. So even some pet projects in some of our districts were not heard or were voted down because we were trying to protect this fund to make sure that it's available when we need it. And the last thing I'll bring up is that public safety isn't just about deputies. If we were to fund deputies even at full levels, it does not mean deputies are out in our roads and out in community every day at the same time. It means still it would be staggered, and it would still be certain amounts allocated for jurisdictions, and not everybody can respond to the things at once. So yes, these are important questions, and public safety are one of our top priorities here, and we're making it clear and we're being consistent. In fact, our budget allocates more money than previous administrations has, and is very focused on not only addressing crime itself, but the underlying things that cause it and related to it, to make sure that youth have opportunities not to get involved in it in the first place. People who do enter the justice system have pathways that do not permanently damage their future prospects of gaining employment and being able to provide for their families. And so a lot of prevention in this is public safety too. And so I have to thank my colleagues. I have to thank everyone in the audience for your service and your dedication to this process and showing up and advocating for this, because we care too. And contrary to how it feels, yes, we are very aware of this and we are trying to do our best. But, historically, it's very clear that Pierce County has a problem with deferred maintenance and deferred taking care of the people who do so much for our county, and we're trying to do our best to right-size it, and that is a difficult process. But thanks for listening, and thanks to the chair and the staff for this budget. I would be not here without the help. And Councilmember Morale has been very encouraging to me as a first-timer, and so I really appreciate the mentorship occasionally that he can provide and the support from my colleagues. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for the comments. We're going to go to Councilmember Denson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll echo the thanks of my colleagues to the community. A lot of these folks here are from my district, so thank you for taking the time to come out. And I know it's late, and I definitely hear your passion. I want to thank the department, the executive, and all of the departments under the executive. Of course, our council staff, they've worked so hard. And my colleagues as well for working through this very difficult budget. There's been budgets, well, before me, but that were a lot easier. I think there was a lot more funding. We weren't facing a structural deficit that we do today. So it was challenging. None of us got everything we wanted in this budget. None of us love everything in the budget. I feel like there was a lot of compromises made. Again, none of us got everything that we wanted. But there was a lot of discussions that have happened over the last many months, and just in between ourselves as we work through issues. I've seen all of my colleagues fight hard for their districts and what their districts have wanted. And I've also seen us really understand priorities and supporting each other with priorities as well. So I take a little exception at some of the comments earlier that did not happen. I know I tried my best. I certainly voted no, probably on things that you all brought forward, but I know that I voted yes on things that you all brought forward as well, each one of you. I supported park projects in different districts. I supported projects at airports that were not in my district. I supported programs. I know you all well enough and what's in your hearts and what you're trying to respond to in your districts that I just took a little exception, because I really have tried hard to make sure that we're all feeling good about at least some of the things in this budget, knowing that we can't make everybody happy. Public safety, you've heard, is definitely a big deal in my district. I think it's a big deal in all of our districts. I mean, those of us that have more unincorporated areas probably hear about it a lot more. Those of us who have rural areas definitely hear about it. I mean, the Key Peninsula, for example, and all of District 7 on the other side of the bridge. Those of you who've been on the council longer than you heard about it before me as well. I met with some folks in Gig Harbor today. It came up, of course, and we talked about how it's not only the Peninsula detachment, it's the Foothills and the Mountain detachment as well. All of our rural detachments that are very low staffed. I think we have 2 right now. For a while we were up to 3 over there, which is great, but that has dropped now that our staffing has suffered, as Councilmember Yambe said, and I think others have said. It's been an issue nationally, and it's an issue because even though we might compare well with other counties, we're competing with cities, and that is a real challenge. So right now in the biennial budget that we're talking about that's before us, there's $406 million for our sheriff office. It's extremely expensive, and it is our #1 priority. So, I mean, we understand that has to be done. There's $25.7 million of an increase over the last biennium. People are expensive. Training is expensive. Equipment and cars and technology, it's all very expensive. And I think the message that I want to share on public safety today, especially with the folks from my district and those others that have the similar concerns, is we're not done. We can't be done because we don't have the contract yet. I won't go into the details. You all know it. It's been described here. We need that contract between the executive department and the guild so that we know the full financial picture. We know what we have to pay. At that point, it comes back to us to ratify the contract and then to find a way to fund it, which means going back into this budget and amending the budget. We're going to have to amend the budget as appropriate once we have the wages and the benefits and we know what's involved. That's our obligation. That's not a choice. We have to comply with that contract, and we're going to do that. So I know we all want that to happen sooner than later. We have our role to play. I know the executive department and the guild are wanting the same thing, and I hope that they can get that sorted as soon as possible. It'll be better for us. It'll be better for us financially because we may have to not only add money in for the sheriff department with the things that are negotiated, but that may necessitate taking other things out. We don't know. We don't know until we have the contract and we have the full financial picture. So stay tuned. That will be coming. In addition to public safety has been a big deal tonight, and it should be. But in addition, I just want to call out a couple of the other things in this budget that are important to my district, and I know they're important to my colleagues too. Tons of investment in roads. We have 3,200 lane miles here in Pierce County. We have an amazing maintenance and operations staff. We have a shop over in Purdy that serves my area, and then we've got the central maintenance facility and other shops, and I think there's a shop out in Councilmember Kruger's district as well. These guys and gals, they circle through these roads constantly, chip sealing and painting, and I'll tell one of my, or point out to one of my constituents that spoke about maybe some unsatisfaction. Please reach out. Reach out to the Public Works shop, but you can also reach out. Yeah. You can also reach out to me.
For years.
Okay, well, we can't go back and forth, but that's surprising to me because our guys and gals are so good. So reach out or make sure I have your number, and we will make sure that we address, or, I mean, I'm not in charge of planning and Public Works, right? We don't direct them, but every time that I've sent them things, we've been very successful. We're working on continuing on with the Fox Island Bridge replacement project. That's hugely expensive, millions and millions of dollars going into maintenance and the design for when we are ready to replace it. Shoulder improvements, bridges, traffic, other traffic projects throughout the county. There's so much in our traffic improvement plan, and then it's just the maintenance. There's just a lot to keep going. This budget represents a lot of investments, additional investments in seniors and senior centers and veterans and disabled individuals, our residents that are vulnerable and deserve our care. There's a lot in there for parks that serve all of our communities, whether they're dense or rural. Economic development, development services. We've got a lot of work to do with development services, but we're getting those permits faster. We're working hard because, you know, we've seen the issues, and I know the department is working really hard on that. Emergency management, with wildfire risk increasing throughout the county, we need to be ready to support our fire departments as well as our sheriff departments. I know in my area, emergency management, the sheriff deputies, the fire, I mean, they're not going to, they cannot go knocking on doors, right? These driveways are really long. They're half-mile long driveways. People have to have a plan, and we've got good evacuation instructions, and we're able to facilitate that. So that's all work that county does. There's so much more in this budget. We've spent, as folks have said here tonight, we've spent so many months on this. There's programs about litter. There's programs about addressing environmental considerations so that we have a healthier community. And then there's a lot in there for each of our districts because we did something different this year. You guys have heard us talk about it a little bit today with the Community Needs Fund. We each had funds that we were able to allocate to organizations and programs or even county programs that we felt were really important. I know I used my funds for parks, for food banks, youth services, senior centers, emergency management. I think I funded 3 different emergency management programs. I know my colleagues were really thoughtful about that as well. So again, I know not everybody's happy. I know there's a lot of wait and see happening with the sheriff department right now. We're going to get through this with the contract. Anything that we can do, I think we're happy to do, but we've got to get through the collective bargaining process with the guild. And I will just shout out to the guild as well as the executive that they know that we're wanting to see that come to an agreement as soon as possible so that we can finish this up. Thanks. That's all I've got.
Thank you. I will just close with gratitude to the executive staff who worked with us as we moved through this process, and all the different department heads and staff that showed up and answered questions, talked to us either individually if we were working on understanding something, or collectively as we were just learning what was in the budget and what wasn't. And then thank you to our staff for their tireless effort to get us to where we are today. This council has heard quite clearly through email and comments today that there's a perception or a feeling that we are somehow shortchanging or underinvesting in our deputies. And I have to say again that we live in a county that has urban-like, city-like population sensors that are in county spaces. That is unlike almost every other county in the state of Washington. We have city-like population, and residents who want city-like services, but we don't have a way to fund it. We are actually legally not allowed to by the state of Washington to do the things that cities do to bring revenue in to fund city-like policing. And so we have to figure out ways to do this. We have to maintain the roads. We have to fund our human services. We have to fund our courts. We have to fund our deputies. We have to fund elections. All of these things are things that we are required to do, and deputies are one of them, and a huge part. There's 75% of our budget is for public safety. And it does take all the parts of public safety. It takes the deputies who go out and find people or arrest people or respond to emergencies. It takes the jails, if we do take someone into custody, to hold. It takes the courts to process, because everyone gets due process. And it takes the legal supports both on the prosecution side and the public defender side if they cannot afford that. We are required to do that. And we are doing that. And not passing the budget tonight would be astronomically wrong, because those things cannot continue without a balanced budget. So we pass this budget today. We send it to the executive so that he can sign it, so that we can continue to work on negotiations. It is in our charter or our code, as long I don't remember which, but it's one of the two, that we have to do this because the executive has to sign it by the 1st of December. There isn't options of delaying this, which is one of the asks we've gotten multiple times. So I just wanted to put that out there and say it really clearly. We have passed raises for deputies every time that I've been at this council since I started. We have raised their pay, run incentive programs, done everything we can to make them feel supportive. And I know right now that there's tons of messaging that we do not, but when you look at our votes, when it comes to those programs, we have been supportive, but we don't have anything to respond to. If there was a proposal in this budget tonight that had the pay that had been agreed upon between the guild and the county, we would have done that. If interest arbitration had happened prior to this budget, if that somehow had happened, we would have put it in this budget and voted on today. Matter of fact, I would have loved that, because then we would actually know the future of our county as far as our budget. But we didn't have that information. So we need to move forward with what we have today and wait. When you live in unincorporated Pierce County, like where I live in Parkland, has some of the highest rates of crime. I see the data, we share the data, but those rates are going down. The things that we have invested in, the programs that we are doing, the responses that we have, and the services that we are providing are working. We need to increase the pay, but there's a level at which we have to do it, and that'll be decided in the next biennium. We have increased the budgets, I'm trying to think of everything that was spoken of, so I'm not repeating things that have already been, every colleague here had really good points. But just remembering that this council And this budget fully funds public safety within the means of the county, and we look forward to the future of being able to ratify an agreement that we get to pass through this body. We continue to try and work to find ways to incentivize people to work here. I believe one of the amendments is to ask, I think Councilmember Kruger asked us to, I think it was Councilmember Kruger who asked us to ask the state that we were looking at trying to figure out how we have this kind of, infighting is the word that comes to mind, but like this infighting that happens between different jurisdictions to get deputies or law enforcement officers to come to them with the biggest carrots. So there was a request from this council to our state partners to see about looking at that. There's a ton of stuff in here to be proud of, but I live in Parkland in an area that my house is never left unlocked. I have large dogs. I don't know that I want to be saying this publicly, but I'm going to. You know, I have an alarm system. My house has been broken into multiple times, cars vandalized multiple times. Deputies come sometimes, deputies don't come other times. I haven't been a victim of violent crime, but I still feel like him walk in my neighborhood. I still walk my dog, and I don't understand why people have such an increased sense of fear, but I know that's what they feel. And I can't argue with feelings. It's not possible, because the data that we're seeing is showing decreases, but the feeling of our residents is that they're not safe. So the response is more deputies. When we get the contract, we will work incredibly quickly to get it figured out. If it requires changing things in the budget to be able to afford things, we'll change things in the budget. And what those changes will be, I have no idea, because I don't know what to respond to. I think the other point multiple council members have brought up is the Community Needs Fund. We had over $26 million in asks of community partners, school districts, cities, towns, to help them do good work. And we identified $5 million worth of things to invest in. Some individually or council members specifically picked between, I don't know how many millions of dollars and asked just for your council districts, but I had several, and I had to pick. It was hard. We're investing in the infrastructure in projects across the county, and we are doing as much good with the limited dollars that we do have. I'm deeply grateful for everybody that has worked hard, and while it sounds like we won't have full support, I am really proud of each of you and the work that you've done. And with that, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll on this. On approving let me say it, the whole thing I was supposed to say. Deep breath. Can the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of O2025-562 S3 as amended?
Councilmember Morrell?
No.
Councilmember Herrera?
No?
Councilmember Kruger?
Nay.
Councilmember Ayala?
Aye.
Councilmember Yambe?
Aye.
Councilmember Denson?
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin?
Aye.
You have 4 ayes, 3 nays.
4 ayes and 3 ayes. The motion is adopted.